From Cup of Joe Weather and the office of the New Jersey State Climatologist, it's the monthly weather roundup, where we recap the month of weather that was across the Garden State. Well, there is a lot to talk about in July. I mean, we had everything from high heat to severe weather to smoke. I mean, this was probably overall the busiest month of the year so far, and hopefully the busiest month of 2026 in general. This is going to be a jam packed monthly weather roundup, and I have no greater pleasure than welcoming on New Jersey State Climatologist Dr. Dave. Wait a second. Whoa, John Krasting,
Hey,
Dr.
Joe.
John Krasting. What are you doing here? What are you doing in our monthly weather roundup?
I'm the new Dave, as
You're
lots of people are saying these days.
well,
Sorry, Dave.
you know what? You are a our new state climatologist. You know, you look good. I mean, you and Dave. But one thing I have to say about both of you guys: great head of hair, right? You guys are both in the same boat. You got it. That's great. Dave was in the same way. But in all seriousness, we are super happy to continue this new chapter of the monthly weather roundup with you, with our new state climatologist. We had a great send off to Dr. Dave Robinson last month, and I think he kind of just was like, "I'm gone, Mother Nature. Do everything you need to do to New Jersey," and it did its thing. And now we're here with you, and you and I have been talking for a while, about this, and I was super stoked that one, you were interested in the job, and two, when you got the job, I feel like this is a perfect fit, to lead the state climate office. So, what we're going to do today for our listening audience, I want to welcome John on. I want him to explain who he is and what he wants to bring to the state climate office, and then we're going to get into our very busy July monthly weather roundup. So let's start off with this. You are a Rutgers guy through and through. Again, perfect for the position. What got you interested in weather and climate?
Oh boy, yeah, I am a Jersey through and through, Joe. I've been here my entire life, so I think that prepares me a lot for this position. So I've seen a lot over my years here in the state, and of course how things have changed. But what got me started in meteorology and loving the atmosphere was being a kid growing up in South Jersey and having summer thunderstorms move on through. It was just such a magical time when that would happen and the family would get together. It was just one of those things where, I just was enthralled with thunderstorms. And,
Okay.
that led on to me pursuing things at Rutgers and studying meteorology.
Yeah. So you got your bachelor's, your master's, and your PhD at Rutgers, if I'm correct, right? So
Yeah, just the bachelor's and the PhD. I
I'm
skipped the
sorry.
master's.
Yeah, just you jumped over it. It's I'm coming back. You're coming back. But I feel like in maybe in meteorology, climatology, usually like people they go around to other institutions and get a bachelor's here, master's here, PhD there. What about the Rutgers program was so strong that you said, you know what, I want to pursue my education all the way through PhD here?
Yeah, you're right, Joe. A lot of people tend to move around and get different experiences. And I was so fortunate at the time when I graduated with my bachelor's that there was a big turnover in our department with new faculty coming in. So my PhD advisor, I was his first graduate student, Dr. Tony Broccoli.
Yep.
It was just a phenomenal time working with him with all of his experience. He came from NOAA GFDL just down the road in Princeton. And he brought a ton of experience with him coming up just the road on Route 1. And it was like getting that experience. You would go somewhere else, except it was coming to me at Rutgers.
Sure. And just tell us about your work experience. I know you've had a varied, been in different roles, including in television as well in broadcast, which is another reason why I think you're great for this kind of, Dave was always very media friendly. You had media experience. So kind of take us through that path.
Yeah. So I started working on my PhD, and as anyone who's done a graduate degree in sciences, they give you a little bit of a stipend to live off of, but it's not a lot. So
Yeah.
I took on some part-time work as you alluded to, in the broadcast meteorology business. So I had my television debut in New York City. I was working for My 9 at the time, WWOR, and that was part of the Fox television umbrella. So I spent some time at Fox 5 and then headed down to Fox 29 in Philadelphia. So I made sort of the circuit of the local TV stations here in the area. And it was a great experience in that right.
So I got to ask though, I mean, like, New York's number one DMA, the market size, Philadelphia is in the top, I think it's 5 or 4. Like you were really him, weren't you? You were
Oh,
starting out in New York.
it was straight up luck, to have that sort of a break. And it was definitely exhilarating for sure, and nerve wracking. It's these are not small media markets. So when you get up there and you think about how many people are on the other side of the camera and the lights turn on, right, there's no turning back at that point, Joe.
So when you were there, like you're in New York, you're in Philadelphia, and you're doing your PhD work as well. I mean, was there a part of you who was like, maybe I want to do broadcast permanently?
There was always that tension, I would say. You would think about sort of the what if, but, my passion has really been about public service and the research and the bigger issues of how our environment and our climate is evolving and how it's changing and how we can make it better for folks. And I think that's what always kept me coming back to the research angle. TV was fun, but I knew where my passion was.
Right. So like Dr. Broccoli, your research advisor, you also worked at NOAA's Geophysical Fluid Dynamics Laboratory in Princeton before coming here. So tell us what you were doing there. Like I think when people think of NOAA, they usually think of National Weather Service. That's always the big thing. People might not know we have like a research powerhouse engine right in the Garden State.
Yeah, Joe. So GFDL stands for the Geophysical Fluid Dynamics Laboratory. It's in Princeton. You're right. It's under the research arm of NOAA, and it's one of the prime national laboratories where we develop prediction systems and prediction models. In fact, the very first weather forecast model was built in the early beginnings of GFDL back in the late 1960s. And that evolved into doing climate work and ocean modeling. And that's where I got my start at GFDL. I was brought in to look at the atmosphere in a new model we were building. I quickly got pulled into doing ocean model development. I became very enthralled with the role that the ocean plays in our climate system. And I spent a good part of my career looking at sea level rise, ocean heat uptake, and doing coastal prediction towards the end.
And all that's super important. I mean, obviously we cover weather at the Jersey Shore, our company. So you and I have talked about tidal flooding and what we can do and the possibilities for that. And I'm looking forward to working with you there. So, this opening comes about for the state climatologist. Like, what were your thoughts kind of going into this? Was it more like, I want it, or was it like, yeah, let me see what's going on? And then you were like, yeah, this is what I really want.
Oh, this was a no-brainer. When I got word that Dave was retiring and this was opening up, it brings everything full circle for me. Joe, that whole history of being a meteorologist and loving the weather, all the way through the climate angle to understanding the oceans and our ecosystems. I've gotten this great tour of the entire Earth system through the lens of a climate model. And it's just great now to bring all these pieces together. What better office to be able to talk to all these different stakeholders and people who are interested in our state's climate?
Absolutely. And one thing of the many things I like about the State Climate Office is you guys are really all throughout the Garden State. I mean, from Fortescue to Atlantic City to Sparta, High Point, and of course, right where you guys are at Rutgers and Piscataway, New Brunswick. It's truly a Garden State thing here. What was your relationship like with Dave Robinson? Because he was state climatologist since 1991. So you were a student at Rutgers when he was there. You got your PhD. He was there. Did you cross paths? Was it more like, what was your relationship like with him?
Yeah, Dave and I had a working relationship. As you knew, he knew the meteorology students pretty well during his time there. Dave was part of the examining committee for my doctoral dissertation, and Dave and I would cross paths occasionally when I would come back to teach at Rutgers. So I would teach the Introduction to Meteorology course. I've been doing it for the last 10 plus years in the department, and it was over on the Livingston campus, right outside Dave's
Yeah,
office. So we would bump into each other occasionally.
sure.
But it was really the last 6 months of getting to know Dave on such a great level. We had so much fun when we would meet to talk about this transition. And, Dave was very open and praising of my taking this on and towards the end there. And I just want to take this opportunity to congratulate Dave on his retirement and congratulate him on what a wonderful program he's built over the 35 plus years that he was state climatologist.
Yeah.
As you said, it's really got this statewide reach, and it's phenomenal testament to what he did.
Yeah, and even if I could just pile on the accolades to him, that wasn't his only role at Rutgers either. I mean, he was also lecturing and teaching. He chaired a geography department. So tell us about, like, my understanding is that you have a lot more focus on the state climate office. So tell us about some of the exciting, changes that have already happened. I know you guys moved locations to a new office. Tell us about all that stuff.
Yeah. So the state climate office was originally with Dave in the Department of Geography in SAS. And with my arrival, the office has now moved to SEBS, the School of Environmental and Biological Sciences, in the Department of Environmental Sciences. So this now means that we're co-located with the meteorology program and the graduate program in atmospheric sciences, which is going to hopefully catalyze a lot more organic relationships with the students and the faculty. And we're right across the street from marine sciences, so on the ocean angle as well too. I hope we can bring that along too with some new collaborations.
Right. I heard you
But
have your own wing, right? You have your own half of a floor. Is that what it is at the Environmental and Natural Resources building? Is that true?
yeah, we've got some lab space that we're converting into what we're going to call the command center for our mesonet.
Okay.
As you mentioned, we've got a network of 70 weather stations statewide that take 5-minute obs, and Dave did a lot of building and caretaking of that. So we're going to give it a nice home with a command center feel to it, where we're going to keep eyes and ears on the state in real time.
Great. And what else was I going to say? With the climate office, right? What you've been in the for 30 days now, 1 month exactly. What things have you done with the climate office in those first 30 days? And then my follow-up is, what do you want to have accomplished by the end of the year?
Those are really good questions. So a lot of it has been learning on the job still. Dave did a lot to help prepare me for this role, but there's no way you can cover everything. So I've been spending a lot of time with my staff that I've inherited. Dave has had wonderful people working with him, and I am so thrilled to have them supporting me as well too as I make this transition. But we've been working on launching a new website. We've been dealing with all of the crazy weather that has happened this month. I've done a number of interviews already, I think close to 20 over the course of the month with various different outlets. And I've been getting out in the field too. Just this week, I was rolling up my sleeves and mowing the lawn and pulling out some poison ivy down at our mesonet station in Sicklerville. So getting all aspects of the job.
Right. Not too proud to just say someone else do it. You're getting your hands dirty there. And how about tell us about John the person? I mean, we're doing this at 4 p.m. on Friday. I really appreciate that, but I'm sure you have a family to get back to at some point today.
I do, and we're gonna get packed up for the beach tomorrow, Joe. So we're gonna head down to Ocean City. That's where we've been going as a family for my whole life, and be meeting my sister and my brother down there. So that'll be fun. One of the things that Dave might not like is that the state climatologist is going from a Yankees fan to a Phillies fan. So I'm a big Philly sports guy growing up outside of South Jersey. So I follow the Phillies and the Eagles. Dave was a North Jersey guy. Maybe it's time for South Jersey to come into the picture.
That's true. I wonder, I don't know this. Like when we look back at New Jersey state climatologists, where were all the state climatologists based out of? I don't know. We'll have to.
That's good. We should do that analysis.
Yeah. Now here's the last question for you before we get into the weather, though. But where are you on Central Jersey here?
Oh, it definitely exists. You know,
That's
and
a
I'm
great
going to
answer. I
say that
love
that
that.
gives me some great political cover too, right? Because then I don't have to get into the North South Jersey debate, right?
That's true. And, as a state employee, in which you are, the state does officially define Central Jersey as as an area. So it might be good for
I,
job security too to say that Central Jersey
yeah,
location.
but having lived in what I would call Central Jersey for the last almost 20 years, there's definitely its own unique part.
Okay. Do we have like a geography? Like where's Central Jersey in John Krasting's mind?
I think it's generally north of 195 up to maybe about 78. I know you've talked about sort of it wrapping down the coast in the summertime,
Yeah.
and
No.
you know, I don't
No.
know. I think that even further down towards LBI, it still feels kind of northy to me. I would even put LBI in North Jersey.
Well, but you said Central Jersey exists, so is LBI
Oh, I'm
right?
sorry. Yeah, Central
Okay,
Jersey.
I just want to make sure. But that's what I have. I mean, I'm pretty much like Trenton to about Jackson, and then cutting it southeast to like Manahawk in Stafford Township, and then LBI is that funny part because I do feel like, and I've spent good amount of time in LBI during the summer. It feels like Central Jersey because of that North Jersey influence and people coming down. But during the winter, when you're hanging out in Beach Haven on February 16th and it's 39 degrees and cloudy and misting out, it feels like South Jersey. That's my thing. I'm willing to debate that. We'll say that for another day. But
Yeah, I'll give you that one.
yeah, all right, fair. Let's take a break, and then we're going to talk about the month of weather that was. And we got plenty to talk about with Dr. John Krasting, our new New Jersey State Climatologist, here on the monthly Weather Roundup. Awesome.
All right.
Good? And we are back with our New Jersey State Climatologist, Dr. John Krasting. So happy that we're able to have him here and continue with the monthly Weather Roundup, following in the footsteps of Dave Robinson. All right, so we have a ton to talk about. We're going to start, and I was thinking about what do I want to start with, the heat or the storms or the smoke? And I said, well, let me talk about the storms because that's been like the persistent theme throughout the month. The heat was in the early part of the month, more or less. The smoke was earlier part of the month, but the storms have been consistent. So we had, and we were talking about this off camera, we had 5 different severe weather events. We had the 3rd into the 4th, and then again the 5th into the 6th, the 15th to the 16th, the 18th, and then the 21st. We had on the 21st, we had 4 tornadoes. No, made a mistake. That was on the 14th. Wait, oh my God.
I think it was the
14th.
The tornadoes in Morris County were on the 21st.
The 21st. Okay, my apologies. On the
Right.
21st, I had it right initially. On the 21st, and then we had one in Cape May Point. So 4 tornadoes on the 21st. The 4th of July storms were significant lightning shows on the fireworks days too. Like I was in Ventnor one night and Avalon the next night, and what we saw were the fireworks in the sky and then nature's fireworks in the background. The one on the 5th into the 6th, I think the most notable thing from this was the BJ's in Ocean Township in Monmouth County had a partial roof collapse. And then we had the 15th, 16th with more severe weather there. And then the 18th, where we had more severe weather across the state. So just like, tell us, how much rain did we see from all this? We had 4 tornadoes, in that one day. How can we put that in context with New Jersey? I'm going to just turn it over to you and let you start talking and dropping knowledge for everybody here.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen this persistent pattern of below average rainfall for months now. So we finally have a month that is above average. So we can celebrate that. I don't think we're going to get the final numbers, Joe, until probably mid to late next week. But the preliminary stuff that we're seeing now is a pretty decent gradient in terms of rain going from north to south. So in the northern part, we're looking at 7.5 to 8 inches of rain over the course of the month. In the southern division, climate division, we're looking at somewhere around 6. And then along the coast, a little bit less, maybe about 5.5 to 6. But that gives us sort of a statewide average of a little over 6.5 inches of rain where it stands now. So we still got a few more reports and drops to count. And wouldn't be surprised if that goes up a little bit more before numbers are all final and said and done.
Sure. And then with the tornadoes, right? So we had 4 tornadoes in the state during the month. Those are confirmed.
Yeah, we got some tornadoes. The
Yep.
average for New Jersey is 2.
Yes.
So over the course of a year. So we're running ahead of pace. But the last couple of years, we've been seeing quite a few tornadoes around the state. So, in terms of the long-term average, definitely above average already. But maybe in the context of recent years, not so much. What was interesting is, up in Morris County, it's been a little bit of time since they've seen tornadoes up there. It's been about 5 years. Back in 2021, a similar kind of magnitude tornadoes moved through in July and August. And then we had that water spout down by Cape May, which was pretty cool.
Yeah.
That was, you could see that moving across the bay. There are pictures on both sides as it leaves the Delaware side.
Yeah.
And then comes ashore in Cape May. So
yeah,
that added to our total this month.
Yeah, that one, like, it was about a mile. I don't even think a mile. I think it was like a half mile, how long it was on the ground, and then it fizzled out, going through Cape May Point. Thankfully, no injuries or no fatalities with them too. But it really was a significant month for tornadoes for us. In Cape May County, similar to Morris, the last one we had was in 2021. In fact, going back to 1950, which is on your state climate website, Cape May County has seen 9 tornadoes. That's it. So in 76 years, there's been 9 tornadoes in the state. I feel free to agree or disagree, but I think, just given Cape May, water surrounded on 3 sides, a lot of stabilizing sea breezes. Yeah. We call it the Cape May bubble, John. There is some scientific evidence to that, but that, it's not even, and Cape May County is not that small of a county either. I mean, it's pretty long, so it's rare to really have a tornado, in Cape May County.
I think you hit the nail on the head there, Joe, with that Cape May bubble. It's that stability that you see right along the ocean and the marine layer that knocks that down. It's also contributing to why that part of the state is still stubbornly hanging on to some of the more extreme drought conditions, which we'll get to.
Yeah, we're going to get to that too. I counted, there were 13 days that the Storm Prediction Center, part of NOAA, had New Jersey in some kind of risk for severe weather. The average is about 8. So this, was above, roughly 50% above average for us too. So, the numbers have certainly played out. We're going to bring on our intern, Derek Deal here, who was a student of Dr. Krasting's.
Oh, no.
For Intra. Here he is. He's here.
Derek.
Derek is here.
Past Professor Krasting, I should say.
Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you. You were, I think, my second meteorology research. I was out taking another one, but obviously you were formative in my early part of my Rutgers career, and you were a great professor. And I think every fellow student of mine was either glad they had you or they were jealous that they didn't have you.
Wow.
Thanks, Derek.
Yeah.
Anyway, so Derek, what question you got for? We'll welcome you on the show with a question.
Sure. So my question of interest was focused on the event on the 16th of July in LBI. That was the day we had the Canadian smoke event. We also had a really intense training set of storms that set off a few tornado warnings and a severe thunderstorm warnings in Ocean County. What is your hypothesis of the impact of the smoke, or the smoke gradient, if you will, on that storm? Was there some sort of heating differential or CCN enhancement that strengthened that storm, or did the storm really form in spite of the smoke? What would your hypothesis be on that?
That's a really good question. I think we're going to have to dig into that one in a little bit more detail, because there are a couple of competing hypotheses, as you say. One is that the smoke could be creating more particulates in the air for water vapor to condense on, make more rainfall. The other is the smoke can actually create temperature differentials, or like mini fronts that create lift in the atmosphere and can enhance the storms. But I think the real story in what happened actually goes back to the day before. So on the 15th, we had a lot of rain and storms over the northern part of the state. And those bubbled up in the afternoon. They started drifting to the south as the day went on, and then they died out. But you could see very clearly on radar the outflow boundary continued to sag down into Burlington and Ocean counties in the evening hours, and it just sat there. So when everything got all hot and soupy the next day, that was really the point where everything just bubbled up. And the same conditions that were trapping the smoke meant that there wasn't a lot of motion or movement to keep things moving along. So you got these thunderstorms that fired on that front and just pretty much parked over the same area.
Fascinating.
Yeah, it was, and that event was, for our company at the Jersey Shore was incredible because of how much rain fell in such a short period of time. But also, I was telling you guys off camera, like, like I have people that I stay in touch with when there's bad weather going on, and I'm trying to find somebody. I'm like, I don't have anybody because my LBI contacts are like in the northern part of the island or the southern part of the island, and they didn't get anything. I mean, it was really that central part there, right across the bridge and into parts of Stafford too. So it was significant there, as well. So all right, well, Derek, thanks so much for the cameo appearance on our and your debut on the monthly weather roundup.
Great to see you, Derek.
Yeah, likewise, Mr.
Awesome. All right, so we're gonna get back here into the roundup. So we, with all this heavy rain that we've seen, I mean, people have asked me, right? Like, what's going on? Like, why are we seeing so much heavy rain? And I've said, well, look, I mean, in our climate changing world, we have and will continue to see not only more heavy precipitation events, but more intense precipitation with that as well. Can you say anything, about the state of New Jersey when it comes to that?
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head, Joe. I mean, what we're likely going to see going forward is a lot more intense events. When it rains, it's going to rain a lot harder, and that seems to be the story that Dave's been talking about for decades. And I think that's going to be what we carry forward as well. So, the amount of rainfall that falls in New Jersey has actually increased about 7% over our long-term record. So we're seeing that statistically when we go through the records. And if you take a look at the event, the 1 in a 100-year event, so the 100-year rainfall event, that has gone up by about 10% across the state over the same period. And then since the 1960s, the number of days that we see here in New Jersey with 2-inch rainfall events has increased 49%. So that means that we're getting these larger events happening a lot more frequently.
I want to read off this was from July 6th in Neptune. They saw 6.6 inches of rain, and I actually calculated the precipitation frequency or how likely something like this was to occur. So, in 15 minutes, they had 1.13 inches of rain. There's a 10% chance of that happening on any given year. But it gets more significant than that. They had in 30 minutes 2.16 inches. That's a 1 in 100-year event or a 1% annual occurrence. And in an hour, it was 3.07 inches. So those kind of rains, and that brought water rescues. That brought major roads closed. I mean, at one point, not in Neptune, but in Monmouth County, a lane on the Parkway was closed. That's hard to do because of how well engineered those roads are so that people can move as seamlessly as possible. I mean, in Highlands, one of our Shorely Safe clients, they had 2 major flood events, in the month. They actually, the emergency manager, Tony Flores, he said he saw with his 2 eyes someone go into the floodwater with their car and they're like, oh, well, this is too deep, which always turn around, don't drown.
Never a good idea.
Never a good idea. They backed up. Guess what? The bumper fell off of their car because of that, the force of the water on there. Crazy stuff. So yeah, that's all, well taken. And if there's, I think when we talk about, well, what does climate change mean to New Jersey? 3 things come to mind. What you just said, the heat as well, especially those overnight low temperatures. Dave and I talked about this plenty. Yeah. And then sea level rise too, which does have natural factors in that as well, but is also being enhanced by what anthropogenic sources as well. But the one good thing with all this heavy rain is drought has calmed down. We're not out of the woods with this. We still have a ways to go, but you now, as state climatologists, have a role in the United States Drought Monitor updates, which are issued, just for if first time listening, they're through the data on Tuesday morning, but it gets released on Thursdays. So we can talk about our most recent update. So can you tell us where we are in our most recent update, and do you see optimism here, or is it kind of like, yeah, we're still in the trenches?
Oh yeah, Joe, there's no doubt there's optimism after the month that we've had, and especially up in the northern part of the state. The monthly totals, there are parts along that I-80 corridor where they've seen 8, 10, even 12 inches of rain So the highlands have definitely improved a lot. And the area along the Delaware River in southwest Jersey has also improved. When we look at the percentage of the state that is in severe drought right now, it's 27%. We look at the last week of June, it was 58%. So we've made a lot of progress. But you're right, we're not out of the woods. And you say, hey, how could we still have a drought? Well, what we look at a lot of different indicators. It's not just rainfall. Drought has an impacts part of it as well too. We're seeing the precip improve. We're seeing stream flows improve. The reservoirs are holding in North Jersey, but the one area that's holding back is our groundwater. And we've had so much rain, and as we talked about it raining so quickly, it goes right off. It goes into runoff. So it's hard for that to percolate down into the groundwater. So for that reason, I think the drought situation is gonna hang on a little bit longer, because just as it took us a while to get into this, it's going to take us a while to kind of recharge that groundwater back up.
Some stats here from, if you compare the beginning of July to the end of July, 18% less of New Jersey is in drought. 25% is less of New Jersey is in what we call a severe drought or greater. That's a level 2 of 4. And then the extreme drought, which is a level 3, we've seen a 7% reduction. Now that extreme drought is in parts of the shore, the Atlantic, generally Atlantic City, going out to the Galloway and Egg Harbor Township.
That's right.
And then the Cape May bubble, lower Cape May County. I mean, and a lot of times in summer, right? I mean, these thunderstorms, they're hit or miss. It's hard. I feel like it's harder to pull out a drought in the summer in a way, because it's not like we get these, what we call, synoptic systems where the whole state is getting 1-2 inches of rain. It's kind of like someone's getting 6 and someone's getting nothing. And that's the nature of the beast there. One final question for you, and then we'll move on, is, have you had any conversations with the state so far? Because we are in a drought warning from the NJDEP. Do you have conversations, and what can you share with us about those?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can share with you is that we coordinate every week, and we try to move in lockstep with the U.S. Drought Monitor and what's going on in the state. But we have phenomenal partners over there at NJDEP who are working on this. And what I would advise residents around the state is to really follow the recommendations from both the state at NJDEP and also at the local level. These water resources are managed often at a very municipal level as well too. And these are the folks that really know how to manage that resource in a way that it's going to be available for us when we need it. So yeah, we're having a lot of good conversations and coordinating very well.
Good. All right. Well, we're going to hope for better news and continuing good news as we go into the summer on that front. We're going to take one more break, and we're going to come back. We're going to talk about heat and smoke on the monthly Weather Roundup. And we are back with the monthly Weather Roundup. Make sure to download and subscribe to wherever you get your podcast to this show. We have new episodes around the change of every month here, so you can always find it there. Make sure to check out the State Climate website on social media. Give them a like, and check out all the cool stuff they're doing. All right, so the heat. Now, if this was the first 5 days in a month, I mean, this would be the number one story. I mean, the heat was extreme. It was all time in some areas. It was just, incredible. I mean, we had, for me, just being at the coast, the one thing that sticks out is we tied the all-time record high at Atlantic City International Airport, 106 degrees on the 4th of July of all days. It's just, it's incredible. And, we had multiple days in the hundreds. I remember you were telling me, hey, check out some of these heat indices. I think I have it here. This was July 2nd. Lower Alloways Creek at 130 degrees. That's something you see in like the Persian Gulf.
Yeah.
Not here. A lot of places. I mean, the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. Put that in context for us. Like, was that where does that rank on the hottest stretches? I'm not saying one day, but the hottest stretches in New Jersey's history.
It's got to be up there in top 2 at least in terms of stretches of heat. We were, to put some context on it, that extreme heat index value. When we saw that, Matt and I were just Matt's our assistant state climatologist.
Yep,
we were just scratching our head like, is this right? Is this a sensor issue? sure enough, it was a 5-minute peak value that we saw on one of our weather towers down there at Lower Alloways Creek. It was phenomenal. What strikes me about what makes this event so different is how much the heat made it to the coast. Usually you get some kind of relief in something like this, but the air was just so stagnant, especially as you got into, the July 3rd and 4th period, that even down there at the shore, you could not get any relief. And as you said, that 106-degree all-time record for Atlantic City, we almost set a statewide all-time record for the warmest overnight temperature.
Oh, really?
And it's a very, very fascinating story.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on Friday morning when we woke up, the
3rd
temperature
of July for everybody. 3rd of July.
Friday, July 3rd. It was 87 degrees was the minimum temperature at Newark Airport, and we were sitting on this all day. It turns out that the storms that knocked out all the power later that night, they moved through and they dropped the temperature late in the evening hours down below that. But had we not gotten those storms, the 24-hour period, midnight to midnight, that 87 would have been at the minimum temperature, and that would have been a new statewide record warm overnight temperature. The previous one was 86 that occurred back in Bridgeton down in South Jersey in the 1950s. So we were this close. And that just speaks to that overnight heat issue. You just could not get relief from this heat wave.
No.
And you need that overnight time to cool off and your body to recover.
Yeah, and that's something we've also seen in the climate changing world. I mean, it's not, the maximum temperatures are the sexy ones. Those are 106 in Atlantic City, but at the airport there inland. But don't forget, there's also overnight minimum temperatures we keep track of, and it's those that still pose major issues. I mean, if you don't have air conditioning, that is very tough to live in. And we've talked about this before. I mean, there's a reason why people didn't live in Florida until air conditioning was invented, because it was dangerous. I mean, it was dangerous for your health here. Just going back to the coast, I mean, I look at Seagirt in Monmouth County. That weather station is pretty darn close to the ocean. It's less than a half mile.
Yeah.
Do you have it's something like that, right?
Yeah, it's stone's throw.
Yeah, I mean, it hit 101 degrees on the 3rd and the 4th. There was no sea breeze whatsoever. But it wasn't even just there, because when we talk about the coast and we talk about, how the geography of the shore is, the Monmouth County beaches are always going to be the warmest because there's no bays to the west, and just the orientation of the coast, a south wind can be a land breeze. But even in a place like Atlantic City, which does have bays to the west, does have that, hit 100 degrees on the 3rd and the 4th, right? That's and records in Atlantic City go back to 1874. I mean, that is near all-time stuff for there too. And you got the ocean, which was it wasn't warm. It wasn't cold. It wasn't warm. It was probably in the 60s somewhere, that brought it. So I wonder, and I maybe this is a conversation for next month, but could we, maybe that was the hottest stretch on record for the shore, maybe not the state, but for the shore. I feel like that 3rd and the 4th had to be. We were in Avalon we were actually live streaming the 4th of July boat parade. It was freaking hot. I mean, no sea breeze whatsoever. I was there on the 2nd. There was a beautiful sea breeze there. It was almost a little cool. It was laughable, the difference. But on the 4th, not. And also too, sorry, I get excited about this, but the 4th of July, if there was one day where the most amount of people are outside, it's probably the 4th of July, right? And that's a bad combination. And unfortunately, we did have people who passed away due to the heat.
Yeah, I mean, it's so unfortunate that we lost 29 people in this heat wave, and it just underscores how deadly the heat can be, especially when we have these warm overnight temperatures. I'll just add another interesting thing of just to give you perspective of how much everything's changed in a month. I'd been talking with my fellow state climatologist down in Delaware, Kevin Brinson, the week before, and we were actually thinking about, with all the drought situation and the 4th of July fireworks and the heat wave, are we looking at a wildfire risk? Should we be setting off fireworks even?
Yeah, that's true.
And that's sort of the mindset we were in just 30 days ago. So coming back to sort of the precip part of it, well, too, it's a good thing we've gotten the rain. We really did need it.
Yeah. All right. generally speaking, like, we add this all together, the last half of the month, especially the past week, have been cooler than average, by a couple of degrees. When we even this all out, I know it's preliminary, but what won out? Let's put it this way. What won out? Did all that heat went out and we're above average, or did this cool last 10 days of the month went out and we're around or below average?
You want to take a guess before I tell you?
Well, I think I know what it is. I think we're above average by, I'm going to say 2 or 3 degrees.
It's a little closer than that. It's
really?
about 1
Okay.
degree.
All right.
But again, this is preliminary, Joe. We could check next week and see.
I could be wrong too. Yeah, it's fine.
Yeah, we'll see. Maybe we'll see when the final numbers come in. But the preliminary stuff we pulled this afternoon has us about 1 degree above average. So we're not a top 10 warmest this month, despite that heat wave.
Sure.
And you're right. It's the balance of the heat in the beginning and then the really cool temperatures last week. We were running about 4 degrees below average statewide. A lot of that was coming in the overnight lows. I mean, we were seeing temperatures into the upper 40s up in Sussex County. And I haven't been able to verify this, but I follow a couple of folks who work in the cranberry bogs in the pines. They were saying low 40s in some of the growing areas, which is really, really something for the end of July. So the combination of that. Mark Carpenter, yeah. I followed him
on X, a great follow. If you want to know what's happening in the bogs, man, he's on top of it.
Yeah, so it's that split the difference between extreme heat and cool temperatures, and you get a slightly above average July.
Got it. Okay. All right. Let's end with the wildfire smoke. People were getting some flashbacks to 2023, where like North Jersey and New York City turned orange. We didn't quite get there. I will say there was a little orange, but not like it looked like Mars out there. But the wildfire smoke, this was from Canadian wildfires, a lot of which were in Nunavut and Northwest Territories and the Yukon, came down on the upper level winds right into our area, swirled around for a period of maybe 7 to 10 days. Even in early August, we can get a little more smoke, but tell us about what your thoughts were on that. I mean, is it something we're seeing more of in New Jersey? Is it just recency bias?
I mean, it's consistent with a changing climate, right? So we're seeing wildfire conditions in the higher latitudes north of us in Canada being more conducive for situations like this. These big ridges of high pressure that form in the middle of the continent, middle of North America. You don't get precip underneath those, and that creates drying conditions and fuel buildup for wildfire events like this.
Mm.
So, I mean, there might be a little bit of recency bias, given it was just about 3 years ago that we had such a big event, and this one thankfully was a little bit better, but not by that much. I mean, we were still seeing air quality indexes above 200 on Thursday the 16th. So. I would say that it could be a harbinger of things to come, and it's definitely consistent with how we think the climate is changing.
Sure, yeah, and one thing too for people, I had a question about this, and I answered it like, we get wildfires in New Jersey, but the thing is, because they're so close to us, it's New Jersey and New Jersey, that smoke doesn't spread over a long distance. You're fanning the smoke out, so the further it is. It might not be the thickest, but it's going to protrude over a longer area. Because if you looked at the smoke from the Jones Road fire, which was in, Pine Barrens or Ocean County, for a very small subset of people, that smoke was very unhealthy, but it was in a localized area. And I think what made 2023 so spectacular, I don't know if that's the right word, but impactful, was that it was thick smoke, but over a large area at the same time. So
yeah, I think people underestimate the wildfire risk that we have here in New Jersey and just the expanse of forest that we have with the Pine Barrens. One of the great things about this job, Joe, is I get to travel the state and meet some great people. This week, I was just out at the Silas Little Experimental Forest out in Pemberton. And a shout out to Kevin Brown and Mike Gallagher for hosting me this week. I got to learn all about wildfire operations and preventative burns that they do. And it's really a testament to the work that these guys do to follow the climate and the day-to-day weather conditions and get ahead of that with preventative measures. So we should be very grateful for folks like that who are managing, a pretty big area of forest and a constant risk that thankfully we don't have to worry too much about.
Absolutely. Shout out to them. I mean, they are working, from mid-February until mid-May with the prescribed burning. And then, we also can get some wildfires in the fall too. I mean, and the lookout towers and everything, they're very,
there's no wildfire season anymore. And that's not just true for New Jersey, but nationwide. We're seeing it, unfortunately, all times a year.
Yeah.
And with El Nino, that's coming in parts like Southern California. It's going to be interesting. Does the heat or the rain win out?
Yeah. Yeah. And you have a forest fire index website with the state climatologist that they use as well. So, all right. Whew. Wow,
we covered a lot.
We did. I'm going to hope that next month isn't as lengthy as this.
Me too, Joe.
Yeah, because, it's Friday at 5:09 p.m. right now, and I'm glad we're doing this, and I'm glad you changed the date to make this happen. But, there's a lot going on. I mean, there was a lot going on. Plus, we wanted to welcome you to our audience. So I'll kind of just leave the floor to you. Anything final you want to add, or where people can follow you?
Yeah, I guess I'll just leave a final point here is that, I'm a guy who just loves the weather, and I'm always ready to talk about it. So if you have questions about the climate or the environment or things going on around the state, look me up on social media or reach out to our state climate office. We're always willing to talk. And, we're a resource here for you no matter what you do around the state. We're truly the state's office and a place to be for information.
Great. njweather.org is where their website is. Newly updated website, by the way. I'm still trying to explore it because there's so much. It looks great. It functions great. There's always a breadth of data. I think, didn't you say somewhere you have like 1 billion data points? What was the number?
5 billion. We're up to 5.5 billion data points.
Ton of data. And he's going to, Dr. Krasting and the team are going to really try to parse that out and get some really good stuff for you guys in New Jersey. So we're excited for you. I appreciate, again, you wanting to do this, and we'll talk with you next month.
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. Thanks for having me. Looking forward to more of these.
Great.
All right.
Thanks for watching this month's episode of the Monthly Weather Roundup, brought to you by Cup of Joe Weather. You can find new episodes around the beginning of every month on Facebook, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts.